Some days just don't go the way you want, no matter how hard you try. You'd rather hide from it all, but as the head of the household, you're always responsible, even when you wish it wasn't. My day kicked off abruptly at 7 a.m. When the local police called to report a break, I got to the pub and rushed out the door to find my car had a flat tire. After only getting 4 hours of sleep, I'd borrowed my wife's car and went to the bar. I found the place had been ransacked and the front door smashed. The police said it was probably a robbery, and after the insurance guy took his notes and photos, I boarded up the door and waited for repairs. Thankfully, the insurance would cover it. They covered the losses until we reopened, which was around lunchtime. As I was about to get back into my wife's car to head home, I heard someone shout, "Michelle, wait!" I turned around to see a man running toward me, but he stopped short when he realized he had the wrong person. He mumbled an apology and hurried off. Later at home, I told my wife Michelle about the strange encounter, but she didn't recognize the guy either. When she asked why I had taken her car, I explained about the break-in at the pub. After that, I got a flat tire. I fixed it quickly on the way to work. Then I went to the store to get some new jeans and a t-shirt. When I got back home, I found a note from Michelle saying she'd gone shopping. My shifts on Friday and Saturday nights usually meant I didn't get home until the morning, but I had some time before heading out, so I decided to shave my beard for the first time in 12 years. The change was shocking. I barely recognized myself in the mirror with my wild curls and fresh face. Despite the drastic look, I decided to check out some of the other bars in town that night. Michelle wasn't home when I left, so I went to my own bar, swapped into my new clothes, and even threw on a pair of reading glasses with the clean-shaven glasses. I looked like a completely different person. I looked like I was back in college. My truck was too familiar around town, so I called for a cab and headed over to a rental place where I picked up a low-profile white Ford. I started at the north end of town, hopping from bar to bar, checking out the atmosphere, the staff, the clientele, and the prices at each spot. I was taking mental notes for when my own place was ready. After getting the info I needed at each spot, I'd leave without even finishing my drink. It was at the 7th bar, a college hangout down by the river, that things took a turn. Walking into the place, which was called Rivertown Brandon's, I spotted Michelle dressed in a revealing outfit dancing provocatively with another guy. I was furious when I realized it was the same man who had called out earlier that day. It hit me right then that she had been lying to me as a bartender. I know not to judge people by their I wasn't judging her appearance alone, but I couldn't ignore what I was seeing. I found a seat thanks to a guy at a table who offered me one if I bought him a drink. I ordered a double gin and tonic and observed that they were regulars at this bar. The guy next to me said that weekends were always packed with college kids. I casually asked about Michelle without giving away my connection to her. The redhead at the table told me her name was Michelle Corbin. She was often seen here with her boss, a guy named Rob Hendricks. They were more than just coworkers. The redhead said that Michelle's husband was often away on business trips and that she and Rob always left together before the last set of the band. I thanked them, bought another round, and slipped out when I got outside. I went straight to Michelle's car and let the air out of her tires. That's when I got caught. A woman named Isabella, who had been at the bar with the others, confronted me. She said she had noticed me earlier and figured something was off your face. She said you were struggling to hide your feelings. When I saw you messing with her car, it all made sense. How did you know who I was? I asked. I didn't know, but your questions earlier got me thinking. Now I'm pretty sure you're Michelle's husband, aren't you? She replied. We exchanged a few more words, and I told her I was checking out the competition at the guys' bars, but really I was tracking Michelle. She gave me the keys to the rental and said she didn't want to get involved if anyone else showed up. We agreed to talk later, so I hopped in the car and followed Isabella back. Isabella took me to her place, a quiet modular home just outside town. There was already another car in the driveway. Isabella told me it belonged to her friend Emily, who had given her a lift to avoid unwanted attention at the bar. Inside, the house was spotless and barely lived in. Isabella grabbed a couple of beers and we sat down to talk. I thanked her for stepping in. I said I was starting to lose it. Isabella smiled and said they've got a regular room at the Starlight and over on 4th Street. If you follow them after closing, you'll see she shows up in her work clothes but leaves. By the time she gets home, she's back in jeans. How do you know all this? I asked my brother, who manages the place. He's on duty from Wednesday to Sunday, so he's seen it all. They've been at it for over a year now. Isabella replied. Michelle told him. You work offshore, gone for months at a time, hinting that you have an open relationship. I was stunned and she could see it on my face. You really had no idea, did you? She added. No, I didn't, I admitted. First, I need proof. Second, her parents helped me out with the bar. I still owe them $20. Isabella thought for a moment. I'll talk to my brother and see what he can do. Maybe they have security footage where he could get a hold of her keycard, which would be helpful. I'll see him next Friday at our parents' anniversary dinner. We can talk then. I went back to the bar just before closing time, relieved that the parking lot was well lit. Not long after, Michelle and Rob came out holding hands and sharing quick kisses. He unlocked her car, but then they noticed the flat tires. All of them were flat. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language made it clear that this wasn't just a casual fling. It was a full on the relationship front. Rob called for a tow truck and within 20 minutes someone showed up to inflate the tires. They drove off heading straight for the Starlight, just as Isabella had mentioned. Later, Michelle came home with damp hair and a shopping bag from Macy's. It was a bitter pill to swallow. I'd been betrayed. I returned the rental car, took a cab to pick up my truck and got home around 5. It was 10 p.m. Michelle had no idea her affair was now out in the open. I met Michelle on a double date years ago, and I was immediately drawn to her captivating eyes. Despite her stripper father, she and I hit it off and I started visiting her every weekend. My dad didn't approve at first, but I was persistent, and eventually he came around. While Michelle pursued her degree, I took online business courses and worked. By the time she was a sophomore, we were engaged. Not long after that, my bar came up for sale. I remember her father coming with us to check it out. We discussed renovating the old, outdated place. He agreed to lend me the money from his retirement fund at a 6% interest rate. He even helped out with the renovations. Together, we turned the place around. We cut labor costs. Over the next decade, I brought the loan down from $200,000. We went from $0 to just under $20,000. While doubling the bar's value, her parents had been pressuring us to start a family, but Michelle always hesitated. That's when I realized she didn't see me as father material. I managed to secure a commercial loan and paid off the rest of her father's loan with him, even returning the final payment happy with how much profit he had made. I managed to sell the place with his help and clear the bank loan, leaving only a small overdraft. We were in the middle of making more repairs and upgrades to the bar, but Michelle was too wrapped up in her own world to notice. On Friday night, I went back into disguise and messed with the exhaust on her car and drained the gas tank on Rob's company. I saw them inside their favorite bar, oblivious to everything but each other. Isabella stuck close, offering support. I bribed the bartender to get footage from the security cameras and made sure he kept quiet. He asked what my plan was, so I slipped him some cash and told him just once we'd checked my ID, he was really keen to help me expose the couple who were cheating on him. He even suggested we spike their drinks at an after-hours party they were planning for next Saturday, right in time for my bar reopening on Thursday. As it was a stormy night, I pretended to be asleep when Michelle came home at 3 midnight. I heard her talking on the phone for a long time the next morning. I woke up early and found her phone unlocked. She hadn't deleted her messages with Rob. One of them stood out. It was to her sister. It said, "I need an alibi for last night. I'm going to say I was with you." I snapped a picture of a message with my own phone later. Michelle claimed she'd been at her sister's house. On Tuesday, Isabella texted me to suggest we meet at a truck stop off the highway. When I arrived, she greeted me with a smile and took a quick photo for her contact. She hadn't recognized me. I greeted her and noticed she seemed in a good mood. My brother asked if you could cover the printing costs. We ordered breakfast, eggs, sausage, and bacon for me, and a cheese omelette for Isabella. We both had orange juice and coffee. Isabella handed me a folder full of information. Michelle had her own key card for Rob's hotel room and had been using it for over 6 months, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, always at 7:00 p.m. I showed Isabella the text message from Michelle. She asked, "What's your plan? Are you going to file for divorce there? But why are you doing this? Rob's corporate car is trashed, and Michelle's car smells awful from the tampered exhaust. I figure the company might think an angry husband is to blame," I said, trying to hide my satisfaction. "It's almost poetic." Isabella chuckled. "Should I mention you?" I laughed. "You're something else." Isabella, yeah, go ahead. Use my name later. I thought about everything and knew I was playing my cards just right. I had even discreetly switched out Michelle's. I was on the birth control pills, but then my luck took a turn for the worse. One night on my way to work, someone ran a red light and totaled my truck, causing a massive pile-up. The rescue team had to use the jaws of life to get me out, and I was taken to the hospital for a full checkup. Michelle and her parents showed up after 6 hours of tests, and they finally released me, telling me to rest for 2 days and avoid driving for a week. Michelle stayed home to take care of me. By Saturday, I was ready to get back to the bar. I heard Michelle making plans for a night out. I asked her to drop me off at the bar, saying I needed to check on some changes that night. Thanks to the new cook I'd hired, the bar did double its usual sales. We sold out and were attracting more lunch customers with our daily specials, which fit perfectly with the theme of the bar. The restaurant closed at 8:10 p.m. After that, we only had pickled eggs or sausages for the late-night crowd. An older guy who was retired but still full of energy came up to me with a business proposal. He wanted to run his own kitchen out of the bar. He asked for 10% of the profits. His homemade dishes, like shepherd's pie and Irish stew, were a hit with the customers. It wasn't long before we needed to hire more kitchen staff. It was around 8. Isabella and her friend Emily came in, both dressed to impress in Irish outfits. They sat down at a table and enjoyed the live music and Irish tunes. Isabella's green outfit caught my eye, so I decided to treat them to some specialty drinks. I said, "Hey Mike," and Isabella said, "Thank you," with a smile. She thanked me for remembering their favorites. I shook Emily's hand and she excused herself for a moment. She ordered a ginger ale while I stuck to my rule of not drinking in my own bar, a promise I'd kept for over a decade. When she returned, Isabella slid over to sit next to me while Emily didn't seem bothered. She took the seat across from us out of nowhere. Isabella dropped a bombshell. "Emily, this is Mike, Michelle's ex," Isabella told Emily. "My husband knows about Mike. I caught you doing something you shouldn't have when I was walking around town while my bar was being renovated. We've been friends ever since. Mike didn't know what his wife was up to while he was working. I didn't want him to be alone." "Why did you pick this place?" Emily asked. "It's kind of fancy," I said. "I'll take that as a compliment, though it wasn't what I was going for when I designed it. I just wanted a nice place to bring my girlfriend. Mike didn't just build this bar, he owns it," Isabella mentioned with a smile. Emily looked surprised. Soon the place filled up and our table was Isabella and Emily kept me dancing all night, which was great for my staff because they noticed how crowded the dance floor had become. The music was just right, loud enough to enjoy but not so much that it drowned out conversation. When closing time came, I asked Isabella if she could give me a ride home. On the way, she mentioned that most of the crew preferred our bar. I was happy to find out that it wasn't focused on the university crowd, as I'd been hoping. I also realized that word of mouth was helping expand our customer base. On Sunday morning, I woke up to find Michelle gone, but I wasn't surprised. I spent a couple of hours on the phone to her family and Isabella, while I was talking to her. I got another call this time from my father-in-law. "Hey Dad," I answered. Still no word from her. "No," Mike replied. "That's why I'm calling. I decided to have brunch at the Starlight on 4th. But we wish we hadn't. Michelle's car is parked here. Sorry, Dad, I'm stuck without my truck, so I can't make it. You two go ahead and enjoy lunch. I'll catch up later, I said, trying to sound concerned. My father-in-law was a strict man. He saw the world in black and white. He had a strong sense of right and wrong. We often debated law and order. But his strict beliefs never wavered. If he catches her with another man, I thought to myself, he might react badly. My father-in-law was a very strict man. He saw the world in black and white and had a strong sense of right and wrong. He wasn't happy about some of the things going on in society, but he was a firm believer in responsibility and order. We often debated law and order, but his strict beliefs never wavered. If he caught her with another man, I thought to myself, he might react badly. I filled him in on Michelle's secret outings and sent him some of the evidence I had. After that, I updated Isabella, who laughed and asked what I was up to. I said nothing much, just smiling at how things are playing out. She offered I'd love to, but it's probably best if I stay put for now, given how worried everyone is. It was around 6 o'clock. It's 6 p.m. morning. When I sat down in the kitchen with a slice of pizza, a car pulled into the driveway. I saw Michelle's dad getting out of the driver's seat. He looked defeated. Come on in, Dad, I said, welcoming him inside and offering him a slice of pizza and some Maker's Mark whiskey. Mike, it's serious. I spoke with Laura after we talked, and it turns out my suspicions were right. I had the hotel manager check with the night manager, and it's confirmed that Michelle's been having an affair for over 6 months. Laura knew and kept quiet, thinking Michelle just wanted. I was pretty shocked, but I was also genuinely surprised by Laura's honesty. I was leading the hotel at the time, so I was leading a pretty carefree life. Michelle showed up with her lover. She had this smug look on her face like she just won a prize. I was so furious I almost passed out. It took both managers to pull me away. I figured you'd come here since it's the last place anyone would think to look. Dad, I'll call Mom and let her know you're safe. Then I'll talk to the Starlight manager and see if we can press charges. I reassured him my mother and Michelle was upset but relieved her husband had come to see me. Her mom was less happy though, and said my apology didn't mean anything. She said I'd caused enough trouble already. Later, I called Jason Roberts to settle a small debt. He joked about his sister, saying she never forgets and that I should pay him in front of her. He suggested I ask him, saying it'd save us both a lot of trouble. Jason then told me that no charges had been filed and that Rob had agreed not to press any. Thanks to Michelle's intervention, I thanked him and shared the news with Michelle's dad. He seemed relieved. What's your plan to fix this? He asked, looking visibly concerned. I pulled out my phone and showed him a message I'd drafted from Michelle. It read, Dad, just so you know, I've been told everything. I think you've managed to tear our family apart in a single day. I don't think you should come home. The Michelle I knew is gone. If you choose him over us, our marriage will end. Otherwise, it'll be a slow road over the next 6 months. I sent the message knowing full well what would happen. He knew that once trust is broken, it can never be fully restored. Let's end this marriage quickly and with dignity. He said that after reading it that evening, after pizza and drinks. We went out to get new deadbolt locks for the house. Once they were installed, Laura and her parents, Brandon and Mary, showed up with their cats. They left around 10 p.m. morning. I texted Isabella to see if she was still awake. She called me back almost immediately, asking if I was okay. Jason filled me in, saying Rob had 2 black eyes and a broken nose. Your father-in-law. I had to laugh. He used to box when he was younger. I would have loved to see him at your place after the incident. Did he come by? Yeah, he was a mess, but I learned from your brother that no charges were filed, so I updated the family. They had a meeting to discuss us, but they've all gone home now. What about Michelle? Isabella asked. I showed her the message I sent to Michelle. He agreed. I said it was the right call. She asked if I thought she could give her another chance. I said maybe she could earn back my trust. He said trust is black and white. She made her choice and now she'll have to live with the consequences. I'm with him on this. He even helped me change the locks. Isabella asked if I had any updates from last night. I haven't had a chance to check yet. I've been swamped, I replied with a laugh, but I suppose it doesn't matter now. I'll give it until Monday night. I've heard that it might surprise you, but she hinted that the bartender at Rivertown, Brandon, has a history with some interesting videos. If that's true, it wouldn't shock me if he got footage of everything I said. Mike, she replied, laughing. Anyway, when's our official first date? How about on the day Michelle gets served the divorce papers? I suggested with a grin. I'll even arrange for her to get served at the office. Don't forget the red roses you're sending beforehand. I want to make sure she knows I'm serious. It's obvious that she violated your trust. Isabella said it in a playful way. Tomorrow at work should be interesting. I thought about what I knew about Isabella after the call ended. She's around 24, poor, unmarried, and attractive. She's about 5 feet 8 inches. She's not super slim, but she has the kind of figure my grandfather would have called just right for starting a family. She works in the same regional office as Michelle and Rob, but she isn't part of the management team. From what I knew, Isabella kept her circle tight, mostly family and close friends. She was careful about who she let into her life. She liked dancing and drinking, just like me. She was sociable, but there was something about her that made me think there was more to her than met the eye. She seemed more educated than her job suggested, hinting at some hidden layers. As I got ready for bed, I hummed to myself, wondering what Isabella's real game was. I had a feeling Monday was going to be a busy day, but I'd already arranged for my assistant to manage the bar, so I could take care of personal matters in the morning. Laura, Michelle's sister, arrived with her husband's truck to help me pack up Michelle's belongings. We stopped by a store to grab packing supplies and headed back to the house, starting with the master bedroom while I assembled the boxes. Laura sorted through Michelle's dresser drawers. Mike, I'm really sorry about what my sister did. You hear Laura say she regretted it? I didn't approve, but I kept quiet, hoping she'd change her mind when Dad told me about the message you sent her. I finally told him the truth. I've known about the affair for a month, but I didn't know what to do. I paused before responding. Laura, I'm still trying to process all of this. The night Michelle texted you asking for an alibi, I was at the bar, just scouting the competition. I took that photo. I had this idea that I'd use it to confront her, but I never imagined things would unravel like this. Laura sighed, shaking her head. Dad thinks he failed in raising her, and Mom feels the same way. They both blame themselves. I can't say I'm not hurt, but at the same time I know this wasn't my fault. I said, trying to sound reassuring. Didn't you tell her that the bar had been broken into and was closed? Laura asked. I did, but looking back, I realized she heard me. She just chose not to care. I think it was her way of signaling the end of our marriage, I replied. Michelle has always been shielded by her father, just like I was. Laura believes I needed to experience parenthood to truly understand the sacrifices her dad made. I've always tried to pass on those values to my kids, but even when she was young, Michelle laughed. She had a clear sense of right and wrong, and I guess I wish I'd noticed it earlier. I paused, thinking back. I've often thought about your parents. Not many people can say their father was. And Laura and Michelle are close, so I asked Laura for sewing scissors to cut the middle of the bras. She did it, and then she and Michelle packed up the rest of the clothes. I was really grateful because I couldn't bring myself to do it. It took us about 4 hours to get halfway through packing Michelle's things, so I suggested grabbing lunch before we continued. Laura agreed, and we went to a new Chinese restaurant called Golden Dragon Bistro, which offered a great selection of food at reasonable prices. As we pulled into the parking lot, we saw Rob, who had 2 black eyes, a broken nose, and swollen lips. My father-in-law had definitely left his mark. Laura asked, looking at Rob's injuries, if he had done that to him. I replied that it would take him a couple of months to heal. I had heard that my father had only hit him 3 times before others stepped in. Laura looked surprised. She asked if Rob would be in the hospital if they hadn't stopped him. I didn't know. We were heading to the restaurant when Rob saw us and came over. He was trying to talk to Laura. Have you met my brother-in-law? Law Mike, she said as I stepped forward. Rob's face turned pale when he realized I was the one driving Michelle's car that night. He raised his fist, ready for a fight if that's how you want it. Rob, fine. Laura will confirm you started it, I said as soon as she agreed. I swiftly kicked him in the groin and followed up with. I threw 2 punches to the face and kept going until he collapsed. I finished with one last strike to end it. I felt a sense of release. I walked inside with Laura and we were seated shortly after. I ordered unsweetened tea while she got a cola. Laura asked, "Did my dad teach you those moves?" But part of my job is dealing with issues when they arise. I didn't want a drawn-out confrontation. I wanted to resolve this quickly. I explained as we filled our plates at the buffet. I called Michelle, but I ignored the call. I bet her boyfriend already called to tell her what happened. I said, "Too bad he won't be giving her much." Laura burst out laughing, drawing the attention of nearby diners. It was hilarious. She giggled. I almost peed myself. I teased her, asking how she would explain that to Brandon. She joked, "I would have yelled flash flood." We finished packing up Michelle's things by 5. It's 0 p.m. Then I drove over to Brandon's storage unit to unload everything. I paid the deposit and rent, leaving the keys with the owner. I sent Michelle a quick update via text, then got a call from my insurance company with a low offer for my total truck. I asked for a replacement with similar mileage, knowing it would cost them more in the long run. When I got back home, Isabella and Emily were waiting outside. I introduced them to Laura, explaining they were Michelle's co-workers. The workers and I invited everyone inside. Laura called Brandon to give him an update on the situation, and we all relaxed with a few beers. Isabella said, "We came to check on you. Would you like to join us for dinner?" Emily added, "It's been a rough day for a lot of people. Rob got seriously hurt this morning. He went to the hospital this afternoon, and Michelle was apparently out apartment hunting during lunch." I don't feel sorry for any of them," Laura replied. "We spent the day moving Michelle's things into storage. Mike even let me pack her underwear, so she'll have easy access for her future boyfriends." Isabella then explained that she had notified their company via email about Rob and Michelle's misconduct. She had attached a picture of Rob's beaten face, courtesy of Michelle's father. She made it clear that office romances, especially long-term ones, are unacceptable. Laura asked, "Do you hate my sister that much?" Isabella replied, "I dislike her behavior. I grew up in a family where we were always responsible for our actions. If we did something good, we were praised. If we did something wrong, we faced the consequences. I just think they've gotten away with this for too long. The night I met him, he just found out about his wife's affair. I watched him hold his anger in check, choosing not to confront her publicly. Instead, he deflated her tires, showing restraint and consideration. He didn't want me involved and was prepared to face the consequences alone. That night we talked, and he never cursed or humiliated her. He was just focused on gathering the evidence he needed to explain to her father why Michelle didn't want kids. Mike has always been that way," Laura added. "Heck is a peacemaker, even when he's hurting. You have my blessing. Isabella, if you hurt him, I'll step in. When your father found out about Michelle and Rob, he came straight here to be with Isabella." Laura asked, "Did you know he was the one who sent the text that ended their marriage?" Isabella replied, "That explains why they never discussed reconciliation." I turned to Laura and said, "Call Brandon and the kids to meet us at the bar. I'm cooking dinner for everyone, including Emily and Isabella." After changing into more comfortable clothes, I returned to find Laura gone and Emily in the kitchen. She'd tidied up and we exchanged a few words of appreciation. "I really like your sister," Isabella said. "I think we'll be good friends. She speaks highly of you too." We headed to the car with Emily. Isabella took the front seat while I sat in the back, feeling a sense of anticipation. "You two are taking things slow, huh?" Emily remarked. Yeah, small steps, Isabella replied. I want to be a stay-at-home mom, I said. Brandon's wife is an at-home mom with similar values to me. When we arrived at their house, his kids greeted us excitedly. Laura mentioned how she'd like to connect with Brandon's daughters often, calming them down. We all noticed the need for more bar stools as the place was getting crowded. Later, the shepherd's pie received rave reviews, even from the older patrons sitting next to Isabella. We shared a dessert made by the chef. She tasted my drink and was surprised to find it was non-alcoholic. You're still sticking to that promise, huh? She whispered, tears welling up in her eyes as she looked proud. My assistant reported that bar sales had increased, and we had made over $1. I made $1,000 in food sales alone. I paid my bill with my debit card, leaving a 20% tip. I also told my employees the importance of honesty. Not everyone agrees with that, Isabella said. But if you think about it, it adds up. Rob and I saw that the video was being sold on an adult site. It even included contracts that had been legally witnessed. I texted Isabella to let her know that Michelle would make sure her parents never saw the video. I have an appointment with a divorce lawyer. Isabella said that Emily and I are leaving. Rob, the FDA is stepping in on Wednesday and they want us out before they execute any warrants. They already know where to look. Isabella left around 1, just over $0. I'll be there at 1300 hours. On Tuesday, I sorted out the rental car with the insurance company and went to the lawyer's office to start the divorce process. I was the first to arrive, and she asked me for proof, so I told her the whole story and let her listen to my conversation with my father-in-law. I also gave her printouts from the Starlight. If she agrees to my proposed settlement, it would strengthen our position. I said we should arrange a meeting with her and her attorney to show them what's on this flash drive. It shows everything that happened last Saturday night. I've already forwarded them the confirmation email. What makes you so sure she won't contest this? My feminist lawyer asked me to take the flash drive home and watch the video. I said I'd keep the business and she'd get the house, no alimony. If she refused, then every family member would get an anonymous copy. I stood up to leave, and Mike said, "Are you always this ruthless?" I replied, "I'm only this ruthless when someone's actions leave me no choice." Over the last 12 years, I've realized that my life has been mostly a waste. Meanwhile, Isabella and Emily resigned from their jobs in person. Michelle, the office manager, was stunned by their sudden departure, knowing it would be difficult to replace them. Rob, who was visibly injured, spent the day in his office fielding calls from he knew his position was safe because of family ties, but he was told he would either have to marry Michelle or fire her after the divorce was finalized. After leaving my lawyer's office, I met with a real estate broker. I wanted to see what office buildings were available for sale in the area. He mentioned one building that had potential. If the new owner could find a solid anchor tenant, it was only 5 blocks from downtown and was currently owned by the bank I was dealing with. The broker said the bank was getting tired of holding on to the property. With a bit of interior painting and landscaping, it could be attractive to a new owner. After taking a closer look, I thought the story building could attract some attention. I agreed to move forward, and we went back to his office to draw up a proposal with a low price contingent on financing and inspection approval. He handed me the keys and told me to show a potential client the space at 2 p.m. "I'll get back to you tomorrow morning." The next day, I texted Isabella and Emily to ask if they could stop by the bar. "I've got something to show you both." She replied straight away, saying she'd be there. Then I called my father-in-law. I asked if he had a couple of hours to spare. He asked why, so I explained that I might have to sell the bar to settle the divorce and that I was getting ready for a fresh start. I told him about the office building I was considering and wanted his opinion. He agreed, and I picked him up as we walked through the building. While he was checking out the electrical work, he pointed out a few things the inspector might miss but could be used as bargaining chips. He asked what they were asking for, and I told him my offer. He said that you can always go up but you can't go down. I think you should go for it. You'll need a couple of strong. I don't have any tenants in mind, but I know 2 ladies who are starting their own accounting firm. They're currently working with Michelle and me, and I think they'd be great tenants for the office building. If I end up having to sell the bar, they might be interested. He grinned and said that if I secure it, he'll help with the renovations. The space is more spacious than your current spot, and it has plenty of parking. Laura speaks highly of them. She thinks they're trustworthy. Thanks, Dad, I said. Do you think Michelle will try to claim the business and the divorce? The Michelle you once knew probably not, I replied. But the one you're divorcing might. She'll try to justify her actions by shifting the blame onto me, my father said. And the lawyer seemed surprised. That's not what we know, I said. It's not true, I agreed, but I asked him, name one scenario outside of a legal contract where the truth affects the outcome. He couldn't. Neither could I. In divorce proceedings, it's all about what the judge believes. If Michelle and I had kids, I'd be in trouble in any court's eyes. He said it wasn't fair. Dad, I know, we share the same values. We're in the minority when it comes to shared values. The world used to benefit from a shared sense of right and wrong, but those days are long gone. Just look at the rising homelessness in California. People think it's a promised land, but the reality is nothing like what the media shows them. Later at the bar, my realtor called to inform me that the offer had been accepted, but the bank wouldn't provide financing despite I've been loyal to the company for a while now, so I started looking for other financing options through LendingTree and submitted my tax returns for the past 5 years. Isabella and I walked through the vacant ground floor of the building I was looking to purchase. It had once been a call center, and I outlined my vision for a new bar and restaurant while asking them about their office space needs. We can't afford the finishing costs. Emily said that's why we're looking for move-in ready options. I told them I would cover the expenses myself. As the bar gains traction, we'll figure it out. I said I'll know about the financing by Friday. I'm hoping to get the building below its appraised value. Michelle's dad has offered to help with construction, which will reduce costs. Isabella asked. Why go through all this? The court might force me to sell the bar as part of the divorce settlement, so I'm planning ahead. Draft your office needs for the next 2 years and I'll work from there, I replied, wincing at the thought of Wednesday's upcoming pain. Michelle, along with her parents and the FDA, made rounds to all regional offices and headquarters. She also received a copy of my divorce petition, which cited infidelity as the reason. By Friday, Michelle and Rob had left for headquarters to finalize the deal. I managed to secure an additional $250. We spent $250,000 on remodeling the new space. We started interior renovations on the ground floor, stripping it down to the concrete walls. Our draftsman drew up plans that included an elevator shaft for the 3 floors and additional plumbing for Isabella and Emily's office. Contractors installed 2 entrances, one from the street and another from the lobby. We had to excavate the concrete for the elevator shaft and build an interior wall. Meanwhile, Isabella and Emily kept flying to Washington every Sunday, coming back on Fridays to help out as much as they could. Negotiations between Michelle's lawyer and mine were going nowhere, so I set up a meeting between everyone involved. After finishing the elevator shaft, we sandblasted the building to get it back to its original color and refreshed the red brick. The crew also upgraded the flat roof. Then we moved on to the interior work. Isabella's office had restrooms, a lunchroom, a reception area, and 6 offices. My section included public restrooms, a storage area, a band platform, and a dance floor. The contractors finished her section in just 2 weeks. 2 more 4-office buildings were acquired nearby and 2 were sold and converted into a new Bank of America branch. The local newspaper praised the neighborhood. Redevelopment. I had a meeting with Michelle and her lawyer on Friday. The kitchen equipment had arrived and was set up on the white tile floor. An oak bar counter was being built and dark pine laminate flooring was being laid. The electrical work on both sides of the space was complete. The tables, chairs, and booths were set for delivery on Monday. All of this had been achieved in less than 2 months. My real estate agent secured a long-term tenant. Term tenant, a legal team that would occupy the 2nd and 3rd floors, covering the mortgage, taxes, and associated expenses. At a meeting with my attorney, Michelle said she wanted me to embrace fatherhood. I listened to her claims with skepticism and laughed when she said she had been on birth control when she conceived. I proposed a DNA test to verify her claim, and then instructed my attorney to reveal the contents of the flash drive I had provided. Michelle was surprised to learn that the video had over 2 million views each, generating $5. Since we were still legally married at the time, I said I was entitled to 5% of the proceeds from her one-night stand, as it was considered a marital asset. I gave her the weekend to propose a fair settlement, or else I would make the video public on Tuesday. The room went silent. "I knew who the father of your child is, Michelle," I said firmly. "His name is Rob." With that, I turned to leave. 10 minutes later, my divorce attorney called Mike. She said Michelle's offer is $350. In exchange for you keeping the bar and staying quiet about certain matters, she also wants you to give up your rights to the video. I told her to drop the settlement, but to hold on to the funds until I'm satisfied. "When will the divorce be finalized?" I asked, eager to move on. "I'll schedule a court date, but it won't be official. I'll wait until 30 days have passed after the judge approves." The attorney explained that I should dress sharply. I stood at the airport waiting for Isabella and Emily's arrival with roses in hand, red for Isabella and yellow for Emily. They were really happy to see me, and I greeted them holding out checks symbolizing our financial agreements. With our luggage and tows in our hands, we headed to my new sedan, which I purchased with the cash settlement I found acceptable. "Before we head home, I want to show you your finished offices." I told them the rest of the building is rented out to a group of lawyers. Isabella asked about the losses, and I couldn't help but laugh, confirming they were indeed significant. I showed the lawyers the evidence of Michelle's earnings from the video, which I argued was filmed during our marriage, so I was entitled to 50% of the income. Isabella was relieved as I explained our new situation. I would keep the business, the house, and receive an additional $350. Michelle had a week to remove any furniture she wanted from the house. "What are your plans for the house?" Isabella asked. "I'll sell it," I replied. "I don't want old memories to hold us back from moving forward." Tears of joy streamed down Isabella's face. Emily usually kept her emotions in check, but she was overwhelmed by the transformation. The finished offices were warm and professional, with oak and pastel colors, and they both liked what they saw. All that's left is to name the business, register it, and get office furniture and equipment. I said with a smile, "You ladies have a good eye for colors." Isabella said, embracing me, "I love you." I nodded and kissed her back. Later, I went to Isabella's house with Emily. It was Isabella's first time traveling home with me. We spent hours talking, catching up and opening up to each other. After breakfast at our favorite deli, I took her to Harrison Jewelers to look at rings. Isabella found one she loved, but she was a bit unsure about the price. I told her I'd buy it anyway, thinking of it as a gift for our daughter's 16th birthday. Even the salesperson seemed pleased when I made the purchase. The first person Isabella called to share the news with was Emily. We agreed to meet at Willow Creek Tavern at 6 p.m. I also suggested she invite her parents. I was keen for them to meet the man who convinced them to come back home. I also called John, my former father-in-law. Law and his wife, whom I still called Mom and Dad, invited them over. They were happy to come. I told them that Michelle and I had reached a divorce agreement for next week. I heard that Michelle and Rob had announced their engagement, but I hadn't spoken to her family. I asked Laura to bring the whole family. I got the chef to make a special meal for the occasion. He promised a traditional Irish lamb stew and cedar cookies with his own twist. I told the bartender to serve Irish coffee with fresh cream, except for me. Unexpectedly, a private table was reserved for us at the back of the restaurant for added privacy. John and Mary, my in-laws, arrived first, allowing me to introduce Isabella to them. John and Mary arrived first, which gave me the chance to introduce Isabella to them. The surprise came when Isabella's parents, Kevin and Jocelyn Roberts, joined us. JN had kept them informed while at work. Brandon and Laura arrived with their kids. The little ones rushed toward me, embracing me tightly. Isabella opened her arms, and they gravitated to her as well. During a lavish dinner, we shared the news of Isabella's engagement. It stunned everyone with the size of the ring. Isabella explained how it happened, and my response brought her mother to tears. It earned approval from the relatives. When Isabella said it was fine for me to call her parents Mom and Dad, I told them they'd always be my parents. The food was as good as always. When the bill came, Kevin said he'd pay. I wanted to say no, but Isabella stopped me. When everyone had gone except her parents, we talked about it. Kevin asked why I never drank Irish coffee. Isabella said I don't drink alcohol in my own places to set an example for my employees. Kevin said our restaurant was perfect for his daughter. He liked the office design and me too. John looked at me with admiration and told me he saw me as the son he never had. He said I'm someone who stands firm in his values. Off the record, John was the father figure I never had growing up. I was raised by my mother after my father left us before they were even married. I grew up in a poor household. Meeting John through Michelle taught me invaluable lessons about strength and integrity. He wasn't my father by blood, but by choice, and I owed much of my moral compass to him. We stood in silence for a moment, until the ladies returned. Then Kevin. He spoke up to say he was happy about my relationship with Isabella. He said I could join their family, which Isabella was really surprised about because he never approved of anyone before. We spent the night together, and it was hard to see her leave. Isabella and Emily wanted to leave the FDA on good terms. I listed the house on Monday, signed a divorce agreement on Wednesday, and received the trust funds by Friday. I watched as the judge finalized the divorce. Michelle didn't show up. I picked up my assistant and showed him the layout for the new bar. He agreed to manage it for $75. Mike Bar and Grill made $100,000 a year, plus a 10% bonus based on net income. It opened 3 years later. Corbin and the accounting firm did well, while Mike's Bar and Grill became a local favorite. Michelle and Rob's marriage fell apart when she found out he was cheating with her best friend. Despite this, her family stayed distant. The birth of our twins brought joy to our lives, even with the challenges during labor. Isabella playfully called me names, and we proudly introduced our red-haired babies to the rest of the family.